Yes. There are some people in the waiting room. 1 minute. Hi everyone, welcome to today's live Q&A session with Vijay and Sudeshna from MRDF. Welcome Masfiq, welcome William. We'll be just starting in a couple of minutes, just waiting for some more people to join us. Welcome Shruti, welcome Arun, welcome Srividya, welcome Reena. Till that time, if you could just tell us what city you're joining us from, and we'd love to know where you're based, as we let people in and start this session momentarily. Okay, William is joining from Barcelona. Great to have you, William.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you.
Hey, hi, Sugudha. Hi, everyone. This is Masfiq Hazarik. I'm joining from Guwahati. Hi, Vijay. Hi, Sudeshna.
Hi, Masfiq. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm keeping fine, thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Masfiq. So, Smita, Vijay, Sudeshna, should we start the session?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, welcome everybody to this live Q&A session with Rangde Impact Partner Mithun Rural Development Foundation, or MRDF, as we're going to refer to them for the rest of this conversation. Smita and me are going to ask them some questions about their journey so far, their work, their impact, their partnership with Rangde, and what are their plans for the future. I will just give you a brief introduction for Vijay and Sudeshna. Together, they have co-founded Hamara Grid Private Limited in 2020 after a decade of work developing village-level mini-grids in India. So Mithun Rural Development Foundation is the non-profit arm of Hamara Grid. Their work has been based on an integrated rural development program that is based around mini grids, and they plan to scale it to 1,000 villages in Nagaland. And this is a very ambitious project that we're going to talk more about, and how these mini grids and these sources of power are enabling rural micro entrepreneurs, rural entrepreneurs, and giving them a big boost in their livelihood mission. So Vijay and Sudeshna, welcome to today's session. First of all, I think we'd like to kick off with your journey so far. How did MRDF start? What is the origin story? How did you end up doing what you're doing right now? Please tell us more.
Yeah, thank you, Sugudha. And I'm very happy to see a large number of familiar faces here and names, and many of them have been part of our journey over the last 12 years, helping us get where we have got today. So the journey began about 12 years back, when Sudeshna and I were part of Melinda. We started work in the jungles of Sundarbans. The villagers are joining them, trying to find a way to reverse environmental degradation there, and that quest sort of led to a series of projects, and one of them, which became very successful, was the microgrid project, where we set up these small plants, which solar-based rooftop plants, which will supply electricity to a set of houses or a bazaar, and we got NABARD to finance the capital expenditure part, and the foundation would pay for the operation expenditure part of it. So as this project became more and more, popular and work for the communities, it started expanding from one, island in the Sundarbans to 6 more islands, and from there it moved on to the Purulia district of West Bengal, and then Jharkhand, which state had a similar issue, for access to electricity, and in terms of it being a bit of a conflict zone, they started wanting us to expand to the neighboring districts, and we moved into East Singhbhum, Simdega, and Bumla. And we continued work there until the communities sort of gave us a feedback in 2015 that they were very happy with electricity for for the homes, for the children to study, for the women to cook in the evening, and things like that. The quality of life improved, but what they really wanted was support for the livelihoods, and that involved running irrigation, heavy-duty irrigation pumps, rice hulling plants, and so on. So that required 3-phase electricity, which couldn't be done by single phase electricity that the rooftop solar panels would supply. And therefore, we worked with these communities to design a system that would power these villages, not just give them access to electricity for lighting and charging their mobile phones, but also to build their businesses, build livelihoods, build irrigation systems and power irrigation systems and so on. And so this was in 2016. We set up the first two villages. They're absolutely off-grid, Naratoli and Shaitoli in Gumla district. And from then it started growing. So there are two parts to this whole thing. One is hardcore infrastructure that is required to set up a solar power plant in the village, which supplies 24/7 three-phase electricity. And the other part is how do you stimulate demand for this, because a lot of as the plants get bigger, the amount of electricity developed goes up to 150 units per day, and the village is not able to consume so much and one shot. So if you look at irrigation, that's again seasonal. It doesn't run throughout the day. If you look at other businesses like a rice hulling machine, so it's used off and on for a few hours in a day, few days in a week, so many days in a month, and so on. And pretty much all mini grid operators across the world, William is here, part of Bhaskar, they all have faced these issues about how do you make this sustainable. And everyone has come up with a different model. Some have anchor loads like telecom towers, petrol pumps, large bazaars, etc., which consume a large bulk of the electricity that is produced by these plants. But we looked at it in a different way because these villages were very remote and did not have all these infrastructure that could consume a lot of electricity. So we started looking at these micro businesses and expanding them in a manner that they could consume more and more. And we found that over a period of time, it takes almost like anywhere between 1 year to 1.5 to 2 years, depending on the entrepreneurship potential of the village, in order for them to consume almost 80-90% of the electricity that is produced. And sometimes they grow up the energy ladder so fast that some of the villages exceed the requirement, and therefore we had to design plants which should grow in capacity as the needs of the village grow. So that brings me to the other part, which is the micro business part, which is really demand for electricity through rural development, through economic development, through income development, through livelihoods development. So this is something that we got involved in a big way, and that's really Sudeshna's forte. She's very good with the communities, and she's able to combine the technical part with the business part and the community part. So I let her talk about that a little bit and how that led to what we're doing today. Over to Sudeshna.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. So as Vijay said, that the work of Hamara Grid or MRDF has never been about providing access to electricity to the villages, but actually using that mini grid platform, that platform of clean energy, to engage very, very closely with the rural communities to bring about growth of micro enterprises. So in Nagaland, the work that we had done in Gumla about commissioning over 40 solar grids with an installed base of 1 megawatt of clean energy. So Nagaland has been a replication of our work that we have done in Jharkhand, and there we have begun our work across 3 operational villages in Mon district of Nagaland. Actually, the work started with the DC of Mon district visiting Gumla, and he was very impressed with the work, and also heard about post Melinda that we were working with Myanmar. Smart Power Myanmar. He heard about our work there and wanted us to come and visit Nagaland and Mon district to see that if that in any part of this model could be replicated in his geography. It all started in April 2021 that we visited Nagaland, and the journey started working with the district administration of Mon very, very closely, and with support from Nagaland government there. So even in Nagaland, it has been a mix of the different, micro enterprises, mix of both agri and non-agri micro enterprises that we have, kind of embarked upon in engagement with the community. Some of the work has been a work of conversion, working with the entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs there, by converting, switching from polluting diesel engines to clean electric motors there across the 3 operational villages. So, and it was a low hanging fruit. I mean, there were already, some diesel-powered enterprises existing in the villages like hulling, milling, etc. Mainly, they are focused on agri-processing and agri-enterprises there. We started our work with that, and then kind of also incubated with the help of partners and stakeholders like Ramde, NABARD, Wilco. We've also kind of incubated new non-agri micro enterprises across the 3 villages. So it's a mixed bag of 75 micro enterprises till date that we have across the 3 villages, which is being powered through the solar mini grids. So, in terms of, I'd just like to a little bit highlight about the role of MRDF here in terms of facilitating this micro enterprise growth. So, it's been an ecosystem kind of an approach. It's not one by one micro enterprises that we look at. It has been, setting up an entire ecosystem of growth, and it started right from identification of the right technology to kind of working on the ergonomics of the machines and the different tools to make it more gender friendly, to encourage participation of women, to kind of working with Rangde partners, very valuable input from Rangde in terms of doorstep financing for these enterprises, then forward market linkages, and also kind of measuring impact with WRI. MASFIC is also measuring impact in terms of creating evidences on the ground to make these rural communities bankable. This is something that Vijay and I, we really kind of appreciate, and we really recognize of this partnership that we have with Ramde is making rural communities bankable, creating that evidence on the ground, creating their credit history, and making them kind of giving them that access to formal institutions to come in and provide them that kind of access support, financial access support. So yeah, that has been the long and short.
Thank you.
Story. Yeah.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you, Sudeshna. So I think the interesting bit that you brought up was the ecosystem-led approach that you are, trying to implement on the ground, and the sheer range of micro enterprises that you are working with on the ground. I think that's fascinating. So if someone didn't know about you and they wanted to know about your operating model, how would you describe it, and say very briefly, how would you describe it?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, there are 2 parts to it. One is creating the infrastructure. That's done by Hamara Grid, setting up the power plants, operations, maintenance, revenues, tariffs. That's done by Hamara Grid. So MRDF works very closely with this. They look at the community part, setting up, initially converting diesel machines to electric, training the operators how to run it, and the moment electric motors come in, the volume of business goes up, and then it leads to how to bring markets for those products. Sometimes we have to go backward integrate into the plant productivity side and produce more raw material for the electric machines. But that's one part, that's just conversion. And as Sudeshna mentioned, there is incubation of new businesses. Like we work with WRI and MASFIC here, and they introduce us to some business models around fisheries, biofloc fisheries in Assam, which we could replicate over here with Rangde. So that's a different set of new kind of businesses. And then we work with for non-timber forest produce. So that's a different line of business. Getting them to convert tree bark fiber, tree bark into into fiber and bark into handicrafts, and then finding export markets for them. And then we plan to get into ecotourism as well. And there's carpentry, there's foundry, there's metalsmith. There's a range of village level businesses that we look at, both not just incubate, but also not just convert from diesel to electric, but also incubate new businesses. Sometimes they're not very familiar with these businesses, so it takes some time to build their capacity to set it all up.
Absolutely. So wonderful. Thank you for that. And if we want to talk about the impact that your work has created so far, would you like to describe some of the stories that you've heard firsthand, or you've witnessed firsthand, or something that's close to your heart, or how would you describe the impact of your work?
Yeah, so I'll take the first stab at it, and then I'll kind of request Vijay also to add on. So what we have seen, the mini grids have been operational for the past 1 year. The first grids came up in Jan 22. So what we have seen is that definitely, one of the main impact of the PUEs, the productive use of energy, or the micro enterprises that we have, kind of facilitated there with help of our partners. One definitely has been, that growth of that, entrepreneurship potential in the villages, in terms of that 24/7 reliable supply of single phase and 3-phase power, and the customers have got the choice. It's a very important thing that to give the choice to the customers. So they have got there's a kind of changeover switch at each of the household level. When the government grid is available, they're using the government grid. When the government grid is not there, they're using the solar grid. So the customer has the choice. It's not that they're forced to use the the government grid power that you have to. They've got the choice. That's one. So with the 24/7 supply of reliable, affordable electricity at the houses, that really the entrepreneurship potential has gone up. They really want to kind of come forward, and due to lack of electricity, they could not do or pursue some of the businesses that they have been able to do. One of the thing is that also that has impacted growth of individual incomes in the villages, something that WRI MASFIC is helping us to measure in terms of growth of individual incomes, household income, village GDPs. But apart from that, the one of the main kind of impacts that we have seen is that these, what I talked earlier also about creating that evidence on the ground. That these rural communities are very much bankable, and for the first time we are seeing in a span of just 1 year, formal institutions, banks like NETFI, like State Bank of India, one of the blue chip public banks of India, they are coming forward. They are showing their interest in financing the end user. So NETFI has already kind of come forward and given credit support to some of the entrepreneurs, and then State Bank of India is also following. And it is not only that proving the credit worthiness of the entrepreneurs, the rural entrepreneurs, which is very, very crucial. But on the other hand, for the first time, these two formal institutions are, kind of supporting any kind of enterprise in the district of Mon. It's also enabling them to expand their market in Eastern Nagaland, because most of their work of the formal institutions are concentrated in and around Dimapur, Kohima. Those are the financial hubs. So Eastern Nagaland is somewhere, very underserved kind of communities where we are working. So it is also creating that confidence in the financial institutions to come forward and provide that kind of a credit support to them. So that has been, for me, working with the communities very, very closely, and my team. So that has been, one of the major impacts, if I may say so. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, Anna, absolutely. I think she covered most of the thing, but I just want to give you one example of how it really, this thing completely transformed their life. So there's a village, Jakfang, which we are going to, which is about 40 kilometers from home. It's pretty much remote, and diesel, by the time it reaches Jakfang, is almost like 160 rupees a liter. Yeah. So they have these diesel sets, diesel engines which run the electric, run the rice hullers, and it costs. There's a bamboo bag which they use as a measure, which carries 14 kilograms of rice. So in Japan, it costs them 45 rupees to hull the husk, just the 14 kilograms of rice. And with electricity coming in through the mini grid electricity, they're able to reduce that to less than 14 rupees. So just look at this, from 45 rupees, 1/3 of the price now. So it makes a tremendous difference to the lives of the people there on the ground. The other part is, of course, just snob value. They used to spend their Christmas, and go to a bigger town because it's more reliable electricity there. But this time, all those people who were in Kohima, Dimapur, etc., came down to the village to celebrate Christmas, because there's 24/7 electricity. They're good, high quality electricity, and they had really big parties.
Wow, that's so
Yeah,
wonderful.
they take a lot of pride in their village mini grid. It's our grid, It's a kind of the pride factor is very, very high. Yeah.
Wonderful. It's great that your work has been able to restore local pride for so many people in that area. We'll just take a couple of questions from people who are attending this Q&A session. The first question is from Vijay. What is the source of funds for implementation programs of MRDF, and what are the sustainability plans ahead? Is it a total non-profit, or do we have operating margins?
So I'll again split it into two parts. The Hamara Grid part, which is the technical part, and the business part of the infrastructure. So it costs almost like about 70-80 lakhs Indian rupees, close to about $100,000, about 4 million, to set up a mini grid. So from day one, the very first month the grid is set up, it has only about 20 to 30% maximum utilization of energy. So if this 30-40 kilowatt plant actually produces about 120 units a day, only 30% of that gets consumed in the first month. It takes almost a year plus for Sudeshna and her team to work with them to incubate these enterprises, to work with them in order for them to use this energy for productive purpose. And also, there are a number of institutions. This is very different from other places where we work, like in Jharkhand. Here, all the public institutions, whether the health center, the schools, the Anganwadi, the Morangs, the training centers, the village council buildings, the women group, the church, all are connected to the mini grid, and they pay for the electricity through their own funds. So that's again quite a bit of I would say, an additional kind of a demand that is there for electricity in the village. So it starts moving a little faster than in other places. So that's the second. Third part is when you start working with these businesses, it takes in a year to 2 years. It uses 100% of the electricity. Sometimes it goes more than that, so we need to increase the size of the plant. So from our operational expenditure, this for people who are looking at sustainability, from the very first month, we have an operator who's paid about 6,000-7,000 Indian rupees per month, who's from the village, is trained to operate the plant. And then there's an engineer who looks after 3 to 4 of these plants, and he's a roving kind of a resource. And there's somebody who's looking at micro business development, is looking at about 10-12 villages at a time. The combined expenditure for all these, plus sometimes we have to run diesel when the weather is bad, is close to anywhere between 20,000 to 30,000 Indian rupees per month. And right from the first month, the village is able to consume adequate electricity to pay for this operation part. So they're almost like operationally profitable. There's a margin from day one, from the first month. But for a period of time, it takes time to move from 20-30,000 Indian rupees per month, almost up 80-90,000 Indian rupees per month. It takes 1 year. So this delta is going to pay for all the other costs of loans that we take for setting up the capex, for different costs that are there, other overheads that are there, corporate overheads, the regional overheads, etc. Yeah, that's one part. The other part is the businesses part. The micro businesses themselves become sustainable over a period of time. Initially, we create a corpus through philanthropic funds. That's to about $40,000-$50,000 we raised through NABARD, through GIZ, through Rockefeller Foundation, Smart Power India. So these helped us to set up the initial thing where we could incubate businesses, train them, build their capacities, link them with market, all the initial stuff that go on. But over a period of time, the model starts becoming more streamlined, and they start making profits in a certain period of time. And that's where organizations like Rangde come in and help us to do credit to the entrepreneurs. Yeah, and also build an entire business value chain based on credit. So customized kind of credit. This is where the huge value add comes from organizations like Rangde. And then we go to the next stage where banks, as Sudeshna was saying, that Northeast Development Finance Corporation, a financial institution, State Bank of India, these are coming in to lend, but they're not as flexible as what funding portals like Rangde would do, but then they are able to do much larger loans. So the business starts paying for itself. For instance, you set up a biocrop fishery, it costs almost like 1,20,000 for that entire cycle for 4 months. It doesn't pay for the entire thing from day one if the business is not 100% successful. So almost like 4,000 fishlings in one tank. If they manage to keep the mortality rate low, they will make profitable. It will become profitable from the first round, which some of them 40% of the business entrepreneurs could do it, for the rest over 2 cycles or 3 cycles. So for a rice milling machine, it costs like 40-50,000 Indian rupees for the electric motor, for the electric machine. But that they would make up over a period of 11 months or 12 months, because now they charge whatever for every kilogram of rice they charge to the consumers. So every business is different. it takes the gestation period, the kind of a break-even time, and the time you start making margins will be little longer for some micro businesses, short for some. But then at the end of the day, all of them would be financially viable. It's not a pure philanthropy business.
Great. Thank you, Vijay. William has a question. Based on your business model, do you see a pathway to profitability, or will your operations, just like discoms in rural areas, require ongoing subsidy to be viable over the long term? Do you envision ever integrating with the national grid?
Yeah, lots of questions. William is a veteran in this field, so and he's been part of our growth as well, supporting us all along. So yeah. So Nagaland is, so every place has got its own nuance. The way it it takes time to become profitable. The kind of, so there are 3 or 4 drivers in this whole thing. So first is keeping the capex down on that large plant. That with technology, with certain innovations, that's something that needs to be continuously addressed. Yeah. The second is that we get some kind of subsidy in terms of carbon finance. Yeah. So we are eligible for DREC. So there's a company we're working with which buys the GHG emission reduction, the DRECs at a very premium rate because we work on development. So that's another area which helps subsidize. But the third driver is a portfolio size. First, we need a minimum of 50 mini grids for us to cover all the overheads. Yeah, like I mentioned that in a year's time, you start making almost 70-80% margins, but then that's not enough to cover all the overheads if it's only a single plant, because there's so many layers that are there, making this model work. And a minimum size of 50 mini grids and a 2-year time frame. So to help us to get there, we have different kinds of financing in the capital stack. There is some part of it is philanthropic, almost like 30 to 35% funds are grants that come in. Then there is about the rest initially for the first 2 years is concessional debt. And then there are people that already lined up, like NABARD wants to do infrastructure funding. State Bank of India wants to come in with infrastructure funding. NEDFI wants to come in with infrastructure funding, but we are not ready to absorb that level of that cost of debt as yet. But once we are at that portfolio size, about 50 for us, 50 to 60 grids, it starts. And to us to reach there will take us 3 to 4 years.
And do you envision, ever integrating with the national grid?
Yeah, so that would be the end game at some point. The problem now is not the integration itself, because the plant, the inverters are already capable of integrating, and the discoms are also keen on integrating. The problem is how do we why would we want to take low quality, unreliable, low voltage power, which is at random from that and supply it to the community? So they want us to do it. We're not ready for them yet. I think over a period of time, we need to sort of work with them to find some kind of because we are there 24/7. The national grid is there for 8 to 10 hours in a day. Sometimes not there at all. It's random. Some days it will be there for 14 hours. Some days it's there for 6 hours. Some days nothing at all. So I don't know how to work with them at this point. But surely what William is saying is the long-term solution. So we are there giving them a constant supply. I mean, high quality power, reliable power, which is produced there. So we're just trying to work out how do we integrate with them.
Okay, great. So one more question before we move on to some questions from our side. Sundar is asking, last time when we met, you were exploring voluntary carbon markets to subsidize the cost of solar mini grids. What has been your experience with carbon markets?
It worked well for us. Today, I'm happy to share that 14% of the revenues is what the carbon finance contributes.
Wow. Wonderful. So, okay, so let's move on to the next question. I would now like to talk about the role of credit, and how have you seen the role of credit evolve, and what role is credit playing in the, in your model and in the lives of the micro entrepreneurs you're working with? So if you'd like to take that question.
So from our experience in Nagaland project and Moon project, we've seen that credit plays a very, very powerful and a very impactful role. Impactful from in terms of at two levels, if I may say. One, definitely, meeting the immediate credit needs of the entrepreneurs when they are wanting to set up a micro enterprise, in terms of getting access to affordable, credit is a huge challenge. We all know, and them coming from remote and rural communities, it's very, very challenging for them to access credit. So there, access to credit from, partners like Ramde, extremely flexible, open-ended, to understand the, client need, the customer need, the entrepreneur need, and, helping to co-design, the loan product accordingly has been very, very helpful. So apart from that, meeting the immediate credit needs of the entrepreneur to set up his or her enterprise in the villages, another more very powerful and impactful, kind of the impact that we have seen in our project has been, again, to attract the attention of the formal financing institutions, the role of credit in terms of not only meeting the needs of the entrepreneurs, but also kind of proving their credit worthiness to the formal institutions, their banks there, and they coming forward and taking interest to finance finance. So along with Ramde has been one of the key partners with us to create this kind of evidence on the ground. NABARD again, NABARD Dimapur has again come forward and really partnered with us to create those pilot interventions on the ground, create the evidence on the ground, work with the entrepreneurs and take the initial risk. It's very, very important, as one of the challenges that we see, who takes the initial risk, So taking the initial risk of kind of extending this credit support to the end users, to the entrepreneurs, and then, creating the evidence, and then, kind of attracting the formal institutions to come in. So the credit has played a huge role, and in terms of scaling up, as Vijay said, we are looking at a huge kind of a scale up, very ambitious scale up plan in Nagaland that we have around in a calendar year we are looking at commissioning 15 to 20 more solar grids. And so, the credit needs for not only the infrastructure part, but also for the setting up the different and managing the different micro enterprises in the villages, there'll be a huge, credit requirement. So I see that, credit will play a very, very crucial role in driving the model forward.
Great. And if we wanted to humanize this a little more for people who are attending this, would you like to share any specific impact story from the Rangde and MRDF partnership?
One of the most impactful this thing has been, from the Rangde thing was support was the banana fiber, the handicraft value chain that we have, set up. So it is something that, there's a lot of, wild banana trees growing in and around, more villages there. So we have, kind of the villagers there, they have started on this new enterprise of banana fiber and bark making, and making different handicraft products out of it. So we have established, forward market linkages with export houses in Dimapur, and they have, kind of signed agreements with the MRDF, and to not only, kind of buy back the fiber, bark, and the different basic handicraft products there, but also providing that training support, sending their master trainers to Moon for operational villages to, kind of engage with SHGs, women self-help groups, with local entrepreneurs, how to make the banana, some basic handicraft items of banana fiber and banana, barks. So this is something which is very agro-processing or agri, something very, very organic, it's a very agrarian community. But anything which is, non-agri, something the community takes time to adopt to it. It's a new idea. So I feel that one of the major success stories that we have about a pilot intervention, even the household fisheries, the biofloc technology also worked very well. But this is something which is really rapidly scaling across Mon, and there are even villages which do not have the solar mini grid, but they really want to kind of come forward and participate in this banana fiber and handicraft value chain. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it looks like we'll see a lot more of banana fiber handicrafts all around, hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, and hope to see
absolutely. Absolutely.
Superb. And for those who are attending this session, please don't hesitate in sending us your questions in the chat box. We will also be opening up a slot right at the end of this session for you to ask your questions directly. And now I think we'd all like to know, Vijay and Sudeshna, what are the current challenges you're facing in your work?
Yeah, challenges are at there are 3 or 4 levels. One is that I look at the MRDF part first and the micro businesses. So they have basically been a subsistence-based agriculture community. That means what they grow is really for their own consumption with very little surpluses. So once we introduce electricity and introduce electric motors, their ability to process raw material goes up by 3 to 4 times, sometimes much more than that. And so there's a lot of produce when processed, raw material available. Let's take millets, for example, or take corn, for example. So the market for them is not available in the immediate vicinity, and therefore we need to work to find markets for them where they can get a good premium price for what they produce. The second part is that since they are a subsistence agriculture, they're not enough raw material they have grown, which is adequate to meet the market demand. So it's feeding into that cycle. So markets want more, but they're not growing enough. They're not enough land they're bringing under cultivation. And there's June cultivation there, which means every year they go to a different place where the forest is slashed, and then they let the rest of the old one regenerate into a forest. They come back there after 11, 12 years. So this is something that we are working with them. It's quite a challenge because if they were earlier doing 70, 80 acres per village, now they have to expand to 100, 120. It's not that the land is not available, but then it's much more hard work with the type of cultivation that they do. So that's something of a challenge that we're facing. The second is, of course, we work on the entire value chain. Right from the time identifying businesses, how to convert to identifying the right technology, shooting that machine for ergonomics for a gender kind of approach, gender-based approach, and then quality control and markets. So we find that the women are not very forthcoming, and traditionally Konyak community women slightly take the backseat when it comes to entrepreneurship. So Sudeshna has had to work. Initially, we could get only 25-30% women participants in entrepreneurship. Slowly, that's climbing, and our objective is to reach 40% women entrepreneurs as we go forward. So that's pretty much tough because there are traditional ways in which they work, and she has to try and see how to balance the kind of enterprises in a manner that they can work from home, they can work from their village, and even the training sessions that are being held to build their capacities are also held in their village. So the trainers have to come to the village to train them. Really can't send them outside, to go to a central place to train. That's the third, of course, is access to finance, where you guys are stepping in to really help us in a big way, customizing the credit, helping us to for each tailoring the loan in a manner that it suits that particular type of business. That's the third kind of a challenge we have. The fourth is, of course, it's going to come in now. It's not yet there, but I anticipate a huge challenge because we've done this before. It's going to now scale from 3 villages to 40 villages in the next 18-20 months. So now it's for each of our resources. They're not just engineers or they're not just micro business experts, but they have to straddle that entire 3 areas that we work in. The technical part, they have to understand how electricity works, how machines work. They have to understand how businesses work, how to make them profitable. The third part is to have a very inclusive community approach, understanding working with women entrepreneurs is a very different cup of tea. And all these skills the present team has got. It's a small team today, and we're going to expand to 3 to 4 times that size over the next 1.5 to 2 years. And getting them to understand all parts of this and bringing them up to speed and getting them to make this village development happen is going to be a big challenge. There are other challenges as well. I think Sudeshna will bring that out.
I also wanted to kind of highlight on the fact that, that when you work on such an inclusive approach, like, Hamara Grid and MRDF works with the rural communities, one is having a very, kind of commercial approach towards the mini grid business. There are many practitioners who have that kind of, which is fine. But both Vijay and I have, kind of selected that it will be a very, very community-centric, community-driven and a very inclusive approach. One of the key challenges has been initially, it had been there to establish the trust and rapport in the community. because we are, outsiders, and one bunch of people suddenly, kind of visits you with senior bureaucrats, doing the survey of the village and this and that, and wanting to, and in their life they have never seen a solar mini grid, and suddenly then you're talking at a village, the village council is talking about a solar mini grid. So what is that? What do you do with that? How does it look? How does it build? So, that initially that getting that trust and that rapport, that building, and trust me, Sukada, it's so important, not only from, managing and operating the model, but also from a commercial point of view, also in terms of, kind of getting them to do the recharging, the revenue acquisition, the demand stimulation, any aspect of the business model of the mini grid, that this trust as a community resource is very, very important in our model. And so initially, that was something that we really worked hard in the 3 operational villages to get that trust going, and deploying our team there, and our team staying in the villages, working out of the villages, not working out of the district headquarters in Mon, but in the villages staying. So that created a lot of community trust and community reliability and a community kind of engagement with the MRDF team. So that was one of the ways that we have really kind of, overcome the challenges. And another was in terms of creating community champions. Because even for, in the communities to, work and convince them to work on, enterprises, agro-based enterprises anyways, it is a lot more easier because it's something which they take to. It's something which is more organic to. But, on agri enterprises that we have seen, to create those, success stories, success models, and creating community champions, especially women entrepreneurs. We have been, successful in our own way to create those community champions, and then they, people are inspired. Community women are inspired by seeing them. By seeing them, they come forward. They try to participate. So it's not now. We can, after maybe say another set of 4-5 grids, we can take a back seat and let the, those community champions do the talking. Let them do the convincing. Let them connect with people and the same. Then MRDF takes a back seat, so this is how we are envisaging in terms of, you had one question on sustainability. So it's not only MRDF, will be, kind of doing this kind of driving the micro enterprises, driving the thing. Now we will be creating this critical mass of community champions, and then, empowering them, kind of building their capacities, and they will be doing the work ahead, with the other villages. Yeah.
Very fascinating to know about all the community enablement that you have been able to do in these districts. And now that you've talked so beautifully about the human aspect, the human touch that your work requires, we'd love to know more about the humans in your team who power Hamara Grid literally. So tell us a little bit about your team and, how it's been building this team.
Oh, it's been great, working, though we are a small team right now, but it has been very great, it's been very well bonded. So in the villages, we have, trained locals. As Vijay said, the local operators, we have, selected in conjunction with the village council, a local operator trained that young boy, on mini grid operations. And we have, junior engineers, we have from the Northeast, from, states of Manipur. That we have, recruited, boys, and they are also there as, field engineers working with our team. And then, we have regional managers, one looking after the technical side of the model and the infrastructure side, one looking after the, business development side of things. So, and as Vijay said, we all work in conjunct. It's not like, like we are different moving parts, one looking after one aspect of the business, another looking after. So it's like a very, very well bonded, integrated team that we have, a mix of locals, a mix of young people from other Northeast states, as well as, some of the veteran members who have worked with us in Jharkhand as well, who are very well versed with the model. And of course, we have, as partners, and part of our team, we also have the local village councils. They have been extremely responsive, and cooperative to us. Set up those the 3 operational models across the villages, and of course, district administration as one of, if not a team member, but as a very, very kind of crucial partner.
Lovely. So operators, managers, all in all, what is the number of people in your team?
Today we have 13 in all, just managing 3 villages. Yeah, but we are looking to expand now.
Wonderful. Okay, so we have an interesting question from Arun. Why did you name it Mithun Rural Development Foundation?
So, yeah, but we were looking for a very Nagaland specific name. And many of the names that we gave had all been taken up. So finally, we asked those people, so they said Mithun is our state animal. So it's a bison kind of an animal, a cross between a bison and a wild, what do you call it here? It's something like it's very huge, almost like a yak kind of an animal, very beautiful. So we just named it after the state animal of Nagaland.
Okay, super. And Sri Vidya has a question. Any specific reason for implementing this initiative in Nagaland?
Okay, we actually, Shivindra, the DC of Moon District, the Deputy Commissioner actually visited our model, mini grid model in Bumla, and he was very, very, he appreciated the model and he was very impressed. So he actually invited us to come over to Moon District because he was the DC then, and he wanted this model to be replicated in his geography, in his district. That is why we kind of landed up in Nagaland, and also because he was also interested. We were doing, working very, very closely with Smart Farm Myanmar there in Myanmar. So Myanmar is just bordering Nagaland, So and the socio-economic makeup of Nagaland and Myanmar is on similar lines. So he was very keen that we replicate this model in Mon District, Nagaland. We were actually invited.
Oh, okay.
So it goes a little back. William is, I think he's left because he's got some other engagement. But William is now in his first power, but in his previous avatar, he used to be a journalist who used to cover Afghanistan for a very leading news channel. And he sort of heard about our work and put the energy markets editor of a very famous magazine, The Economist. So somebody came down from London to cover our work, and they wrote about it as a leader and a very large space for us. So this got covered, and the DC of Mon, I think, read about this in the Economist and decided to go and see for himself what really that is. And then he said, "Can you do this in my district?"
Wow.
That's how Nagaland.
Very nice, lovely. Okay, so I think if there are any questions from any of you, please push the raise hand button, or you can just unmute yourself. I think Smita wants to ask a question. Yes, Smita.
There's a question from Chai here. It's a very interesting question. If you were to start all over again, what would you do differently? What advice do you have to other similar organizations working on such interventions?
I don't think we do. I'll speak for myself. We always fight about these things. So Sudeshna has her own opinion. So I'll let her. So I don't think we would do anything differently because we made a lot of mistakes along the way, but we learned from them. And I think that informs, we are still not perfect, or we're not the best model. We know that. We have a long way to go. But in our journey to reverse environmental degradation in the Sundarbans, we learned a number of lessons, and a very important lesson we learned was that there's a harm caused to the environment, not because they don't know about it, but the locals could not help it because poverty drove them into certain practices because they had no way to cook. They had to cut down the mangrove jungles to, for firewood. So long as they were using it for their own survival, the jungle would support them. At the moment other elements came in and started getting commercialized, but they couldn't help it because their earnings were so meager that they would sell firewood. And then the jungle started depleting. Same it came with marine biodiversity. They would fish the prawn export market, would send middlemen to the islands to get prawnlings. And these are found in those shallow waters where the crocodile infested water. And these women would carry very fine nets on their back and walk on those waters, and they would each catch would give them what 150, 200 prawnlings, but along with that there would be a 30, 40 other species, whether it was the Irrawaddy dolphin or the Gangetic dolphin, the hermit crabs, various kinds of other marine life, exotic marine life, which would also get killed. But that really was not their aim, and they knew very well that this is something that they should not do, but they couldn't help it. So this entire model is based on, income, increasing incomes, eradicating or eliminating poverty, getting money into their pockets, helping them to access better medical care, helping them to access better education, able to send their children out to study if they can, get better opportunities. So we learned all these things the hard way. I mean, we stayed there in these villages, worked with them, tried to understand the tempo, the rhythm of their life, how they work and what are the real issues that they have. So I don't think these lessons can be learned, by just some easy way for somebody telling you about them. You need to go through each of these things. And then we work with Maoist infested areas where the problems were different. We went through that stuff. We had our engineers getting to be kidnapped. We ourselves had to face, threats. But then they understood that, as Sudeshna said, you have to build trust, and building trust is something we learned the hard way, and there's no other way to do it. You have to go there, be on the ground, your team should be there, work with them, go through all those difficulties and challenges with them, and that's how trust gets built, because as we grew up in the cities, so we really didn't have such an exposure. But it took us many years to learn this, and I would love to go through the entire thing, what we went through, if I had to start all over again, because it's so wonderful working with these communities.
Yeah. Well, one thing for me, Sukhada, if I could do something differently, one is that I feel that the more I work in Northeast India, the more I feel that I should have started working much earlier, this part of the country, because really working with, the rural local communities in Nagaland, it has been extremely, extremely interesting. It has been very, very exciting. And I really, that was my kind of limitation, I can say. I really did not know much of Northeast India beyond Assam and Meghalaya. So, kind of moving to Nagaland, working in Nagaland, places like Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, and I really feel, really Northeast India, there's a huge, opportunity of working and giving support to the, rural communities out there. I mean, huge. The more I work with the rural communities, the more I realize that, I wish I could have started my work in Northeast India much before. That's the only thing that I wish. But otherwise, as Vijay said, the part of the model, working on the inclusive piece of the model, working with the communities, and has been very much gratifying, and it has been humble, it has been gratifying, and it has been most interesting. Yeah.
That is such a beautiful sentiment. Before we ask you our last question, we'd like to throw the forum open. If there are any questions from anyone who is attending this session, please go ahead and ask a question. Anyone at all? You can just unmute yourself.
Hey, my name is Himanshu and I am working in Bangalore. Nice presentation, guys, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I have one question, maybe I don't know if it is relevant here, but you guys ever face any kind of resistance from local communities working with in far remote locations? Have you ever dealt with any mafias? Maybe, like there are always cases where local mafias do not allow any external people coming in and guiding their community to uplift. So, yeah.
Himanshu, you're right. We have faced when we were working in remote communities in Jharkhand in Gumla district back in 2016. We faced these issues. We faced these issues when we started working in Nagaland as well. Very sensitive area in especially eastern Nagaland in Mon district. We have as Vijay said, threat calls, to us directly, to staffs. But one thing we had, kind of developed is that we had solid support from the locals in Gumla as well as in Nagaland in Mon that we are working. We have, as we said, we really invested our time and efforts to build this community support, this community, kind of rapport and trust. So our staffs who are working out of the villages, it's extremely safe for them there, because the locals really trust us. They really value the services that the MRDF team offers to them. They protect our staffs with their lives. So this is where, it's not that we have not faced those issues. We have both back there in Jharkhand and in Nagaland, but it's because we have that, that great support from the locals. Our staffs really have been well protected, and we haven't really come across any kind of incidents.
Thanks. That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Thank you, Sudeshna and Vijay. So the last question we have for you today is, what, according to you, is the future of the Rang De MRDF partnership?
Yeah, I'll again go first, and then Vijay can, kind of come in. So, as I said, this partnership brings a lot of value to the table in terms of providing that, flexibility in terms of, customizing the loan product, understanding the entrepreneurs, the first time entrepreneur, what the credit requirements are. So this is something, as we scale up the model across, another 40 villages over 18-20 months, as Vijay was mentioning. So the credit requirement will be huge. There will be many first-time, village level entrepreneurs who want to be part of the ecosystem, but they have their own limitations. I see that, that Rang De coming in as a very, very valuable and crucial partner there in terms of meeting the, credit needs. And once, that again, that once we work with that entrepreneur supported by, Rang De, and establish that credit worthiness on the ground, then we can bring in formal institutions to kind of scale the value chain up. So I see a huge potential as we scale up the partnership in continuing and scaling up this partnership with Rang De as well.
So we have I think the biggest value add Rang De brings is the team. I think you guys are a very positive. Trying to figure out how to address the challenge, how to make sure that it happens kind of bunch. So we're really happy to be working with you all. I remember we were in some very tough times getting some of these micro enterprises going. I spoke with Ram, and Sundar was on the call, and in a week's time he was there in those villages with us, and helped me to see exactly what is the issue. I mean, and sort of get back and I think discuss with all of you and try and find a very customized solution to what we are doing. Going forward, we are expanding in a big way. I think our capital raising is almost complete, and we hope to get started on the next set of 40 villages sometime in May, June this year. And that means we do about 25 to 30 entrepreneurs in every village, and 40 villages means like at least 1,200 entrepreneurs over the next 2 years. And the kind of customized approach that you have and your ability to tailor a loan product the way the entrepreneurs want it. And there's going to be a very large number of different new businesses coming. We're looking to introduce ecotourism. We're looking to look at the bamboo value chain. It's a huge amount of bamboo grows in the Northeast. A number of other things on those lines. So I think it's a very wonderful, challenging times ahead with a lot of new opportunities, huge number of new opportunities. And we really look forward to working with Rang De to sort of help us take this forward.
Great. Thank you so much, Vijay. Thank you so much, Sudeshna. So wonderful, exciting, challenging. These are the words I'm taking away from this conversation, and lovely times to actually champion rural entrepreneurship, micro entrepreneurship, all kinds of entrepreneurship in the Northeast and Nagaland. So for everybody who's attending this session, Vijay and Sudeshna are very active on LinkedIn. You can follow them on LinkedIn. You can follow the MRDF pages on social media to know what they're up to. And we will be closely looking forward to what they are doing in the future and how we can support them best. For all of you who joined us today on a Friday evening, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your questions and your presence in this session. This session will be uploaded on the Rang De YouTube channel. You can check out our previous conversations with our impact partner. They're all impact partners. They're all on our YouTube channel as we speak. And we have another impact partner conversation on the 3rd of March. So look forward to your presence there. And thank you so much again for this session. Thank you all for joining us, and see you next time. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Sudeshna and Vijay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.